Welcome back to Creative Commons, where we talk to creative people about their processes and creativity. I'm your host, Andrew Mack, and today I'm interviewing Jack O'Donnell. So Jack, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What you've been up to? All that good stuff.
Hi, I'm Jack O'Donnell. I am a screenwriter and cinematographer at High Point University. I'm currently a sophomore studying media production and pop culture.
Awesome. So tell us, let's just, I guess let's just jump right in.
Yeah.
So, how do you get started with an idea for a script, or like where does the creativity come from for that?
Yeah, I would say I take it pretty linearly, but like spaced out. So like an essay or any other assignment I want to do, especially if it's like research based, I sit down and like I start. Like so if I was doing for another class, I would sit down, I would start and I would research and I would just bang it out in a couple hours. But when it comes to creative writing, I kind of have to like it kind of has to start way ahead. So I know that I already have done this. I have like lists on Google Drive, on my phone, on my notes, sometimes scribbled on the sides of papers that if an idea comes to me, I got to write it down then and there because I can't just sit down. For me, I can't just sit down and like come up with an idea. If someone gives me a prompt, sometimes something new will come from that. But normally I have to kind of console this list of ideas that I've already had because I find that they're usually more interesting, or that I'll sit down with those and be like, oh, cool, that was neat. I'm glad I thought of that.
Yeah.
I remember I'll be like, okay, I remember I was kind of thinking and feeling this then. How am I feeling and thinking about this now? Because I think time uh, impacts a lot about like what writing is.
Interesting. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about the aspect of time, but kind of what are the situations where you have those little inspirational moments that you end up writing down? Are there consistent factors around that?
Um, I would say I think for inspiration, sometimes it's just a thought I'm having in the moment, and oftentimes, I would say they're inspired from maybe something else that I'm consuming at the moment or experiencing. Sometimes it's a personal experience, and sometimes it is like someone else's experience. So like I would say it happens quite frequently if I'm reading or ingesting another piece of media, and I'm like, well, that was kind of a cool idea that they were playing with there, and I'd be interested to work with the idea or concept they had there and interpret it in a different way or put it in a different situation. Um,
Because that goes back to the old adage of like there's nothing new under the sun.
yeah,
Realistically, all creativity is just kind of this idea of like repurposed ideas from there. So, I mean, like we as creative people, I think what's the old saying? The good artists borrow, best artists steal. Like, I mean, we as artists, we take techniques from other people and apply them, and we kind of just transform them into our own thing because we look at them through the light of our own personal experience and our experience with that medium.
yeah,
But do you want to kind of introduce us to a little bit of the work that you've done in the past?
cool. Well, I
Because,
can relate totally to just what we were just talking
yeah,
about. Where I remember I watched a show where I thought it was really interesting, where they had this like ultimate crime that was done, and it was like effectively the murder of a character, but they didn't kill like this character couldn't be killed per se. So what they did is they erased him from memory, and
mm,
so they made everyone forget who this character was. You know what I mean? This is a fantasy element, so they were able to do that, and it worked in within the universe of the story. But they had erased this character from their own memory, from everyone else's memories, and effectively killed the person that he was. And so I always thought that was a very interesting way to interpret death as like, is that like on a certain level it feels worse. Like I remember when they explained, I was like, wow, that is bad. That's like a really bad thing to do to a person. Like you're destroying their legacy, you're destroying everything that they were. So I wrote a script where I thought that was really interesting, uh, and I got it right here. I called it "Forget Me Not," and this is one that I started when I was talking about with those ideas. I had that idea, was thinking, thought like thinking referentially about that show that I watched. I was like, wow, that was a cool idea. I'd love to work with that. And then I came up with this idea and started writing it. Got about a couple pages in, ran out of time then, and I was like, okay, cool. I'll have to pick this up later for whenever I need to. And so it just stayed kind of in that limbo spot until it was ready to for me to really sit down and work on it. And so I called it Forget Me Not.
Well, and I think the interesting part is, I mean, because I'm sure that there's people out there right now, I'm sure a listener out there right now is thinking, I can never think of that. But I think the challenge is like overcoming the hurdle of saying, "Oh, I can't," or "Oh, I don't have any good ideas." I mean, you spun off of something, you took your own interpretation, your own experience, and we all have that.
Yeah.
So I think this podcast is for whatever creative passions our listener has, and I think it's really interesting that this concept is so far applicable to everything out there. Like cinematographers out there, be looking at work. If you see an interesting shot and if you see something that made you feel a certain type of way, then copy it because your goal is you can't copyright a process. You copyright the effect. Like you copyright the actual product. You can't like you're not taking something from another artist because you use a technique that they used. Because inherently we put our own spin and creativity on things.
Mm.
Kind of let's
On,
jump in.
on what you were saying, I
Yeah.
would say my advice is straight up redo it. I'm not saying redo it and then sell it because that is illegal, but I would say that like it totally helps to just redo something, as long as the understanding that you're not going to do it as well as they did it.
Yeah.
Like you're just not like you don't have the experience they do. You don't have the probably the finances and the means to recreate what you created, but you can find so many videos online of someone being like, there was this amazing shot in this James Bond movie and with the lighting was really nice and it kind of came through the smoke, and so we recreated it on a budget and learned a lot from that experience. And in my mind, I've always thought of it as this, I believe it was a Benjamin Franklin quote, and I say I believe because, well, people really don't really remember often what you say to them. They remember how it makes you feel. And I remember the way I interpreted Benjamin Franklin's quote was, the first step to not sucking at something is to suck at it. So just do it. It's going to be bad, and you just got to kind of take that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be bad. Like you might get beginner's luck, but you're going to get better. That's the goal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and like, I think it's really, really difficult for artists because, I was listening to, I think it was Luke Forsythe, I think, and he's like a documentary filmmaker, and he talked about the fact that as an artist, your tastes, it's going to take a while to catch up to what your tastes are. Like we have really high level tastes. We're into really, I mean, like a lot of us are into really advanced art, and because we understand the techniques and all that kind of stuff, but it takes a long time to get to where we can actually be performing those techniques rather than just watching in awe. Like, I mean, they're the reason like we call like Spielberg and a lot of these other people the greats. Like they are the greatest at what they do, not because they got lucky, not because they just we learned something new. Like they put in the experience, they put in the work, they knew when to use things, and it takes time. Like you can get there. It's just a matter of time and patience. This is really me talking to myself, but
Yeah, you got to remember that like you said, the greats, they weren't always that way.
no.
And to think that they were or that they were born special or different is to honestly to degrade them
Yes.
and diminish the work that they put in.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think most people would agree that a story of a person rising to greatness rather than being born into it is much more interesting.
Oh, it's much more fascinating.
Yeah.
So, what makes you excited about a script? What makes you just excited about, getting in front of the blank page and writing?
Yeah. What I love about writing is thinking of the way that it could affect other people. Because writing has affected me in my life. And I've talked about this before with some friends of the kind of idea of like parasocial relationships, and that sometimes the connection that a real person can build with like a written one or a fake one in a piece of media can be just as real and impactful over their actual life as real people. And it sounds kind of sad, but it doesn't make it all the less real. And the ways that which stories can reflect life and give you the message that we're needing to hear at the right point in time is incredibly powerful. And because that was given to me, I feel that it's only logical. Like I feel like it's part of my duty being here to give that back to other people. And I guess what I would say I get excited about writing now is I get excited because I'm like, cool, this is the best I can do now. And then I know next week I'm gonna look back on this and be like, this was not that great. But I know it. I know I get excited every time I'm in class, like, and I finish this script, and then we read something else that's so much better, and then we find out the techniques and reasons for why that was so much better. And I'm like, cool. I did the best that I could then, but like seeing that I have so much more to get better, like that room to grow is it just gets me all fired up. And so like I write with the idea that like I can't wait to get better. Like I really enjoyed this, but
Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome. I wish I had more of that mindset because I just get pissed off that I didn't do it right the first time.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. I'm pissed, but I good at motivating myself.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
sometimes no. Sometimes I just get pissed and I can't do the thing anymore. And so that's why I run. So yeah, every runner is a masochist. That is true. I don't care what anyone says. We have some deep problems to work out.
I mean, that's fair. I
Yeah.
mean, I weightlift for the same reason. But I found that this to be really true with a lot of media production majors is that they have had media that's had a massive impact on them. I mean, a little bit of my story is that I was telling stories when I was really, really young. I loved stories, whether that was books, TV, movies, making up shit with my mom. Like it was so much fun to just be able to have that freedom to like create stories, and media production and being behind the cameras just a way that I personally have found to tell stories. And it's why my philosophy on art is the way it is. All art is storytelling in some capacity.
Mm. Yeah, I love what you said. I especially love that you included your mom.
Mhm.
Big shout out. I'm also a mama's boy. So this is that's what this episode is. It's
Yeah.
mama's boys.
Oh yeah.
And no, my mom is a much better storyteller than I am.
Mhm.
I literally I'll tell her stuff that happened to me. So I'll be like, okay, cool. I know she knows this. So when we're at like a party or something, I'll be like, yo, mom, can you tell that story? Because I know she'll tell it better than me. She's got timing down, pacing, how to draw people in, like the right amount of backstory to give, where it's not like I do that a lot. I'll either give way too much, and then people are like, dude, what is going on anymore? Or I'm like tired that day, and or thinking about the fact that I normally give too much, and then I give nothing, and they're like, what?
It's both times is what's going on.
Yeah, both times it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. If there are if our listeners trying to get into this whole script or anything,
Mhm.
where do they even start? What things should they avoid when they're starting out so they're not making like the most basic mistakes?
Yeah. Well, so I'm getting into this more and more as I go. So like I said, I'm only a sophomore, and I'm very happy that I just picked up a great gig working as a student tutor for the screenwriting course we have here. And working with the students there, I'm sure if you came and talked to me next year, I'd be able to give an even better answer with a much wider range of experience. Um, but also to take that and say, I'm learning, so I can tell you what it's like as someone who's learning. And like I'm gonna say like what issues you can do, but just keep that in mind. Like that's their yeah, their issue feels like a weird word because it's like it's a problem, but you're gonna fix it. Like, and if you're not gonna fix it, then I don't think this is I don't think you wanna do this. Like, if it unless you're excited to fix these problems and get better, then I'm not saying give up, I'm just saying, like,
Reassess?
yeah, because 'cause there's something out there for you where you're gonna get fired up and wanna fix your problems and wanna get better. Um, but yeah, I would say first, definitely most important place to start is formatting. Uh there are a lot of websites that'll do a lot of it for you, but you still have to learn how to operate those the same way that if you're an editor, you would have to learn how to operate Adobe Premiere or DaVinci or Final Cut Pro. And granted, those softwares are a lot harder because they're doing a lot more technical things. You still have to learn how to operate the system, and getting the formatting down is the first thing. Because if you're trying to sell a script and it doesn't like it's a Google Doc. It's like this MLA? Like what? Like it's not gonna. I think they're not only does it make you look unprofessional, but it's just not readable. Like we've established the system that we have because it's efficient and effective for not just produce, but like from producer to director, from director to crew to talent. Like it just everyone it fits within everybody's needs. Maybe not to the best, but it gives everyone a little bit of everything. So formatting is definitely a place I would start.
And then would you mind talking just a little bit about the difference between creative writing in like a book versus creative writing in a script?
Oh yeah, totally. So I think that falls somewhere between formatting and somewhere between content. It's I guess it's technique, maybe you'd
Mm.
call it. And I actually took a creative writing class and a screenwriting class on the same day, back to back, and like that was my life for a semester. And so I that made me like pretty aware of the differences. Um, and I think the biggest thing is like action versus dialogue and like how we do show not tell. Um, like a script needs to stay short, brief, like keep everything together, like stay in the present tense when writing stuff because that's the shortest way in the English language to get stuff across. And you just churn through pages, and that's bleeding back into the formatting thing. The way that we have the format set up is it's very easy to lose pages. So when I was script writing, I was always like, oh God, I got to keep this under five, under five, under five. And then when I'm creative writing, I'm like, I got to bleed this metaphor out for 2 more pages. Like no one wants to read that. And there was actually one assignment I did where I kept the same story. It was the exact same story, but I wrote it one time as a script and one time as a creative writing assignment. And it was pretty interesting to see how those differences came apart and the way that you use like metaphor versus imagery. So like I'm describing the setting with like the house and the way that like the wind is blowing across it and stuff like that. Whereas in a script, I literally just wrote setting house, old house. And I was told to do this specifically because it's not my job. Like unless there's a really specifically important detail that is not expected, kind of got to cut it out. Because it's not your job in the larger scope of making what your script is going to be. Like this is not your script is not the final product. You are not selling the script. You're selling the movie that the script would make, and so that's not your job in it. So ignoring the house example, let's talk like about like a tree. So like if you're describing a tree, it could be a really cool old twisted tree. Um, and in a book, like a book that you're going to sell for creative writing, you have to describe that. Like describe the twist of the tree, describe the way the wind howls over it, describe the way that it feels rough and coarse. You literally just write old tree unless it grows purple fruit, in which case write it has purple fruit on it. Like cut that out. And it's because like that's not your job. That's a set designer's job. That's what the producers are doing. They're like, oh, that's the tree we want to see when we're shooting it. And you communicate with them about that, but it's not all in the script. And probably is there a bit of generalizations because just reducing it to tree might be too reductive, depending on how important it is to your script. But it's not. Don't write everything about it because that'll be very quickly become a page. And the rule is that about a page of a script is about a page of film or
Minute
a
of
minute of film.
film.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And if you have written a 1 page long description of a tree, which is honestly pretty easy to do with the script formatting, do you really expect them to film a minute of a tree and then people to watch it? Like
Some really good looking tree
a
then.
really great tree.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, but I don't think I'm your target demographic.
Yeah. I mean, you're a fiend for trees.
They call me the hugger.
Oh, thank you so much for being
Yeah.
on this podcast. Do you have any socials you want to plug? Anything you want people to go and find you on?
Yeah, I'm building out a media account for myself right now, trying to work on reels and get like monthly content up there. And that's O'Donnell, ODONNELL _media. Don't know how I got lucky enough to get that handle. I can't believe that was open. They're like, I was like, oh, let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, so go find him on there. Just bother him, spam his DMs, all
Dude,
that kind of
please.
stuff.
I need people to talk to. I want to find friends.
What are we then?
Mama's boys.
um, but you can find me at amacphoto92, or you can find the information for this podcast at Queen City Collective. Thank you so much for listening. Go in peace.